Good afternoon, my lovely people. It's nice to have you again for the deep dive. I'm standing in for Harry. Hi, Harry. And as usual, we will be discussing the stories that came up during the week, the stories that caught our attention, and what it is that we think the tech industry is heading towards. And we are looking at discussing it with three lovely gentlemen. I have Gwanji here, and I have Sid Chudasama, and I have Ali Hussein. And they are all joining us for the deep dive.
Guys.
Hi. So, gentlemen, I'd just like to start with one thing that I know is a passion for Ali. Ali, we had a webinar on DigiCircles the other day, and we were talking about circles need to digitize and how they need to bring on all these people who can help them to invest whatever it is that they want to do as circles, rather than just doing it as a back-end office or doing it as a small bank. So I'm just wondering, when you look at circles and the need for transparency and efficiency, and how they generate loyalty when they bring on board digitalization, what are your thoughts on it? Do you think that circles deserve to be treated as small banks?
Look, I think first let's just look at the numbers. Last year, SACCOs, financial, and what I usually call third, fourth tier financial players, SACCOs, chamas, groups, savings groups, microfinance institutions in this country helped Kenyans save 766 billion shillings. 700 billion shillings. The fact of the matter is then this money generally leaves what I call the SACCO ecosystem and goes into the sort of formal financial space. And the fact of the matter is really because most SACCOs don't have channels that allow their members and their customers to interact within the ecosystem. So digitization is not something that is a nice to have. In fact, we should even be discussing this now. I mean, this is 2020. We should just really be discussing what else they can do for their members, beyond payments. How can they open up the global investment ecosystem? And all this is available through open banking channels, through open banking APIs. I think the major issue, as far where I sit, as far as concerned, is not that SACCOs don't have the ability. I think they have some of the most interesting tech professionals working in the SACCO space. I think the big issue is one of being able to say, look, let me not, pussyfoot around this. This is a governance issue. If we resolve the governance issue within SACCOs, we will see tremendous improvement in the digital transformation of these SACCOs. It's a huge, huge opportunity. And it's actually what I call the opportunity of a lifetime. Look at some of the big players. If you just look at agency banking itself lends itself very well to the SACCO model. But look at who leads in the agency banking space in this country. It's the big banks. If you look at Equity's numbers of last year, agency banking platforms brought in more than 500 billion in deposits for Equity Bank. This is something that SACCOs can play, and they can play well. And the good news is that the technologies are available.
So when it comes down to it, SACCOs keep thinking that their technology that they're given is diluted and that they're being treated as small banks as opposed to SACCOs that actually have the weight behind them. How do you think that they should handle this?
Look, I don't honestly. I don't think there's a partner or a vendor out there who would want to shortchange circles from a technology perspective. I, I would really discount that particular issue. The major issue is what I said. Let's just call a spade, not a big spoon. It's a governance issue. Let's resolve that, and you will see the tremendous change in the Sacco ecosystem.
All right. I seem to have lost a few of my guests. I'm not sure what's going on. If you can come back on board, just let me know. They've all disappeared. It's just you and me.
Okay.
So this
Great. Let's
week
talk.
there was, yes, let's chat.
So, I mean, if I'm to talk about SACCOs a little bit more, I think one of the critical issues. I mean, look at Mwalimu Sacco. Look at what they're doing now. They have created their own data center. They have partnered with a European service provider to specifically create their own core banking platform that speaks to our SACCOs internalities and how their customers and members are actually engaging with the SACCO. So, there are already examples on the table. So I don't think the issue of SACCO saying that vendors are giving them second-rate technology is valid anymore.
Sid, what are your thoughts on DigiSaccos?
So first of all, I just want to apologize. The connectivity keeps dropping. I find it ironic. We talk about technology and then we get Wi-Fi problems. So yeah. But regarding DigiSaccos, I caught a bit of what Mr. Ali said, and I noticed that the crux of what he was saying revolved around the way in which technology operations will revolve around customers and customer centricity. So I think that the important thing about this is knowing that now members of DigiSaccos are people who appreciate and value technology. So this in itself is a revolution, and we are going to see a whole new breed of something coming out of the Sacco sector, because not only is technology allowing for new gaps to be plugged and spaces to be filled, but a whole new idea and a whole new way of understanding what they do. So yeah.
So Mbugo, why do you think that SACCOs and technology don't seem to be mixing very well?
First question, let me throw a span in the works. Carol, are you in a SACCO?
Yes, I am. Was that not the right answer? Were you expecting me to say no?
And Ali, I'm sure you. Yes, I was expecting you to say no.
I mean, more than
I
one.
may have prejudged you in a certain way, but excellent. Said yourself, are you in a SACCO?
I'm not.
Okay. No, I was just taking a quick poll. I think it's less about there being an apathy by the SACCOs towards technology as it is to maybe distilling the value of that technology. I like saying that technology should be transparent, in the sense that you're not espousing or you're not putting the technology front and center. It's more about the customer experience, and if that is powered by tech, then we'll see that uptick. The biggest opportunity now, especially with COVID, has been people are seeking more utility from the financial institutions, and SACCOs actually have had the best opportunity in a long while to actually drive that adoption by their members.
Okay. Well, another thing that came up this week that we seem to have gotten a lot of attention for was the hacking of these systems that led up to billions of shillings lost. Nobody knows how much money it was, but there was a lot of money that went missing, and hackers are involved. And I'm wondering, with these hackers, should the banks actually come and talk about the experiences that they have, or should they just be quiet and keep quiet and just make that a consolation to their customers and not let them think that something has happened? Or should they actually come out and talk about it?
Carol, can I jump in? I mean, surely.
Yeah, go right ahead.
I mean, my bank has had downtime now for the second time. The first time it took almost a whole month. No digital platform available. In a country that speaks mobile, in a country that is so digital, when a bank, a second, third tier bank, or whatever financial institution, no matter what size, cannot have a digital platform open, and then they are not communicating in the right way to their customers. I wonder how long it will take before they have no business at all. So for me, let me look at it from a strategic perspective, from a board level perspective. Um, Hacking, intrusion of IT platforms will continue to be there. If Google and Facebook can be hacked, if the Pentagon has been hacked, if the US government itself is having problems with electoral systems, who are we? The point is not whether you're going to be hacked or not. The point is
Is when.
as it's when.
Yeah.
As sure as there is sun coming out every day in Africa, you will be hacked one day. The question is, how do you react? And how do you ensure you have systems and platforms and communication tools, number one, to respond to your customers, not just a bloody SMS, forgive my French. An SMS a week later, no communication, no nothing, you know? Then these guys are not communicating. The same usual players seem to be going from one bank to the other. Number three, for me, last and not least, we now have a cybercrime law. What we need to do is scale up the law enforcement part of it. And I know there's an incidents reporting platform at the Communications Authority. I think we need to just completely expand this whole conversation, include not just financial services players into the government ecosystem to make sure that you're monitoring and you're ensuring that you have players within the uh, the law enforcement agencies to ensure that when something like this happens, it is mitigated and mitigated very, very quickly. It's unacceptable, no matter what, that a bank would have their digital systems down for more than a week, not a day, not a few hours, a week, and zero communication.
Well, it's interesting that you should say that because I remember that there was a bank that was hacked, and I talked to some of the people who are close to the bank, and they told me that you can actually get these people to talk to you and they can tell you what actually happened. They can break it down. And I actually did an interview. I was supposed to do an interview with them, and I sent them all these questions, and they seemed like they're going to answer. Then at the very last minute, they backed off and they said, "We're sorry, it was just a systems failure." They didn't even want to talk about it. Sid, have you ever encountered something like this?
As a journalist myself, I always come across people who never want to do interviews. But regarding the very notion of cyber attacks, I feel like we need to transition from cyber to something called cyber resilience, which is, in a nutshell, the ability of an organization to respond after the cyber attack, meaning that they can continue with their business operations. And so I feel like, just as Mr. Ali has said, it's not how it's going to happen, it's when, because it is going to happen. So now the continuity needs to revolve around what happens after. and the way in which business operations can be streamlined so that you can continue with everything going on. So, yeah.
Mbugu, are you cyber resilient?
Scout's motto, always be prepared. I'd like to take this slightly different angle and say, just like COVID, we are not testing enough. There are not enough pen testers or not enough organizations are taking the time to actually try to break their own systems from inside. It is thought of, systems are man-made. Anything that is man-made is vulnerable. And if you're creating any ecosystem of value, if you're involved in the creation of any value chain, where there's something to be extracted, whether that value is money, whether that value is consumer data, you must be prepared for this thing. And if you look at the breach that you just spoke of, the one in Uganda, it was not as a consequence of, say, a glitch or an issue with the major platforms, in this case the banks and the mobile money operator. It was a third party. It was instigated at a third party level. So strong as our weakest link, and we must ensure that even with cyber resilience, that we must ensure that the basics of how we build the systems are built with that security. Some of us do something we call security by, if I use the in context, think of a house that you've painted the door in the same color as the wall. So you assume that no one will know there's a door there except the people who live in the house. So you assume that since people can't see the door, then there is no way in. Yet we know that what happens, especially with social engineering, is your best staffers will go home, they interact with family, they interact with friends, and that point of contact can actually be a point of infection and infiltration into your organization. So we need to test. We need to test often. We also need to sensitize our staff a bit more in terms of what does it take to actually breach any sort of organization. It's very simple. Some of these are very kindergarten hacks. Classic example is, I buy a few very cheap USB sticks and I plant some form of malware and I drop it outside Kipochi Bank, right? I drop a few outside Kipochi Bank. So Ali's staff members, come out as they're going home and someone spots this very nice looking, well-branded USB stick and they're like, I wonder what might be in here. It could be nothing, but it could also be gold in this digital age. And what would be the first thing to do? Put it in a bag and the next day try plug it into an office machine or a home machine to try see what was in there. And it's something as simple and as kindergarten as that exposes us. While, maybe what...
Hello, Mbugu, are you there? Well, it seems like we've lost Mbugu. So, my lovely people...
Someone has hacked Mbugu.
Someone has hacked Mbugu. We have been hacked. I can see a comment here from Ezra Chibole that's very funny, that money was not lost, it was allegedly lost. Well, my So if you are following this conversation, just send us a message on LinkedIn, then we can chat with you. Then we can align our conversation. I think that right now it's time to take a short break so that I can come back with even more fresh stories for you. Take it away.
CIO East Africa welcomes you to the Cloud and Security Summit from 22nd to 23rd October. Join other IT professionals in discussing the future of cloud computing and how to use the cloud platform securely for your applications and storage. With more than 30 expected speakers, this is a must-attend event for CIOs, IT directors, CTOs, and other senior IT professionals. Register today at cio.co.ke and join the discussion, brought to you by CIO East Africa and sponsored by Microsoft, IBM, ADC, Checkpoint, Sophos, VMware, Asset, MC3, and Manage Engine.
Welcome back to Deep Dive. I think that both Ali and Mbugua look like they've been hacked. Oh, Ali, you're back. Mbugua, are you anywhere close?
I'm back.
Too bad. Okay. So this week there was a story that Cisco lost a lawsuit to Zoom, and they have been fined $2 billion by a judge. And I think the judge was actually being punitive because he said that their behavior was willful and egregious. And he said that he was very, very, very disappointed in how Cisco were handling themselves during the trial. But then again, the judge said that they infringed on 4 patents. And these 4 patents that they infringed on was also added to the total amount of money that they've been fined. Now, here is the thing. With Cisco saying that they're disappointed and planning to appeal, what do you think will come of this appeal when they finally go to court? Because this has been said to be a giant step for small innovative companies like the one that won against Cisco. But it's a huge leap backwards for people like Cisco, for big companies.
Carol, can you hear me?
Carol, I can take
Yes,
that.
I can hear you. Go ahead, Sid.
So I think this is a watershed moment for the technology sector, and this is a warning shot across the bows for what I call big tech. Look, there is a terminology that is now being bandied around. It's called the kill zone. So the kill zone specifically alludes to a space where tech startups, upcoming tech startups, technology companies are starting to play in, where big companies like Cisco, Google, Facebook, Microsoft, Amazon. Amazon is very notorious, by the way, in this particular area. I mean, Cisco is this case of Cisco is almost coming out of out of left field, but the fact of the matter is that these big tech companies have created a sort of kill zone where any startup that tries to get into a space, let's say artificial intelligence or video streaming, that these players are already in social, social enterprise that these big companies are in, you will either be acquired, be killed, or basically be shafted into obscurity. And they use different methods. So kudos to that judge that made this. Really, it's crossing. It's saying enough is enough, drawing a line, on the sand, so to speak, because this sort of behavior is becoming so prevalent in the technology sector that it has led to a point where VCs, the first thing VCs do before they fund any technology startup today is look, are you in the kill zone? If you're in the kill zone, boss, your chances of survival are minimal unless you are building your platform or your business to actually be acquired by one of the big players. It's tough times for tech startups.
Sid, are you in the kill zone? Sid seems to be frozen.
Are you asking me whether I'm in the kill zone?
I was asking
Are you
Sid.
asking me or
It looks like he is. He's dead to us.
I also play in the kill zone, but
Can you
I'm
hear me, Carol?
resilient, so we will get out of it.
Sid, glad to have you back. What do you think?
You hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
You asked whether I was in the kill zone.
Among other things, yes.
Okay, so regarding Killzone and the startup. Sorry, just
Yeah, we
to
can hear
take
you.
a small
Slight lag,
tangent
but
from your
can hear you now.
question. Recently, and yes, I agree with Ali on what he said about it being really difficult for startups because we have seen that Apple recently sued one of their partner companies who was reselling their phones, but this tells you that this kill zone, the lines, the dimensions between how they operate is getting narrow and narrow. It's very small. So it's like the company that's going to help you scale is also the same company that's going to bring you down. With regards to Cisco and WebEx, you can see that WebEx was that is where all this comes from. It links back to that. So sorry, I know it's a bit back and forth, but that's my answer.
Well, so it was just a competitor.
Yeah.
Well, just to come round to the very end, I can see Google has been lost again. Well, CA just released their quarterly results finally, and then Safaricom are still in the
Google
lead.
has been
You know,
hacked
they're still.
today.
I really think so. His munchkins have hacked him for good. Then Safaricom still seem to be leading the pack, you know, according to the CA quarterly results. And it would seem that as much as they don't want to be considered dominant, they're still very dominant in the market, and they really can't deny that. But I'm more interested in one thing about Tcash. Should Tcash really be competing in the same place as Safaricom and Airtel Money? Or should they just pivot?
Let me just say this. I mean, Carol, I'm just looking at the numbers. I mean, what does Safaricom think dominant means? Are we are we speaking two different languages here? I mean, look at the active registered mobile money subscriptions. Safaricom M-Pesa 30,193,831. Those are active mobile money subscriptions. Airtel 310,000. Tcash 13,000. Look, I mean, I'm just, with all due respect to, to Airtel and Tcash, if they don't cry Serikali's idea, this is gone. this, this is gone. I mean, as I was just plugging in, a telecom line to my home yesterday, and guess what I paid with? I paid with a pesa. I mean, that,
You did.
that's how bad it is. I mean, I would love to have another option, but where is it? Right? So this issue of dominance, but I think the question is M-Pesa needs to stop strutting around like a big shark in a small pond. It needs to get itself out of that pond and get into the big blue sea and mingle with other sharks. I mean, this story of Kenya mobile money, this story is done. Dusted. Let's move on.
Well, thank you for joining us. About Safaricom saying that they do not want to be dominant when in fact they are dominant. And what do you think the other players in the industry, what do you think they stand a chance against Safaricom? What can they really do?
Great to be back. I mean,
Or you want me to repeat my question?
my take on things is very simple. We need to stop looking at the network of people and start looking at the network of things. the network of people has already been saturated. I mean, you look at those numbers, and everyone and their mother has 3 SIMs on them. But where we're going to in terms of smart things and IoT, we need to start looking at the network of things. And all this, there isn't even there's no second place player in the telco space in Kenya, truth be told. There's a distant, second and third, but they can transform themselves by looking at the data-only opportunity. Geo has shown us what is possible in different markets, where in India they literally leapfrogged everyone else, who had legacy systems and legacy infrastructure to offer compelling services. So instead of looking at the traditional wacha niende ni activate SIM card kadhaa hapa Kawangware, what other places can they plug in? And some of them actually have very dispensable already on the ground that can allow them to do this. There's always talk of goodwill from the C-suite, but I think it is that some of these guys need an injection of fresh blood to really look at the opportunities and execute, mercilessly, and the markets will reward them well for that.
So, Sid, we've noticed, according to the report, that data is still growing faster than voice. What do you think that is?
Why data is growing faster than voice?
Yes.
First and foremost, it's definitely COVID-19, because a big part of what the virus has brought to the IT infrastructure, or what the report says, is that people are just buying data and are resorting to doing everything online, as we've seen, as we're currently doing. And so that could be the biggest reason why data is taking prominence over other aspects. And also probably because Safaricom is spearheading that initiative, It's like that's the way in which they are trying to angle their brand these days. And so that seems to be what they're going for.
Well, I think as much as the Safaricom story has been told and told, I told it once in East Africa, where I interviewed Stephen Mwaurandwati, one of the M-Pesa. So I would like you to get yourself a copy and read it, because it's a brilliant publication, if I do say so myself. And that brings us to the content, honestly. Gentlemen, thank you so much for up. And thank you for your brilliant minds. And I hope to see you again very soon.
It's a pleasure. Carol, can I just say a quick closing remarks? And this is to my Safaricom friends. If they don't want to be considered dominant, let Mbugu and I set up a mobile money operation, and they just give us some millions subscribers. See, they want to reduce the market share. We are happy to take off some of those clients.
I'm sure they'd be more than happy to not give it to you.
In our dreams, Ali, in our dreams.
Thank you, guys. It's been a pleasure. Thanks, Carol. Thanks, CIO team.
Bye. Thank you, guys, for tuning in. Thank you for your post. And we hope that you follow again next week on DeepDive on LinkedIn. We look forward to seeing you again, and thank you. And have a lovely Friday afternoon.
Have a great weekend, guys.